All right, good afternoon and welcome to today's Community Connections seminar on caregiver burnout. We're so excited to have everyone join us today for this virtual event. Our speaker today is Erica White. She's an LCSW with Community Hospice in our grief support department, as well as Hope Counseling in our mental health department. And Erica has been with us for a couple of years now, I think, and we'll give you more information on herself in just a moment. But Erica, thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you. At this time, we are recording this presentation. So if you missed something and would like to review it in the future or share the information with your family and friends, it will be available on our Community Hospice YouTube channel later this afternoon. And you can just go to YouTube in the search bar, type in Community Hospice, and you'll see a list of all of our different videos that we create, including this topic and others. If you have any questions at all throughout this presentation, please go ahead and enter those into the chat box. I'd be happy to moderate that for you today, Erica, and we'll certainly ask those questions to make sure that we get the correct responses. So at this time, again, I'd like to, Erica, just thank you for joining us, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Hello, like she said, my name is Erica White. I also am a social worker, and I've been in the helping profession for over 20 years here in Stanislaus County. So we're going to have a lot of information on local resources as well, and I can probably answer your questions regarding those once we get to the end of this presentation. So thank you for joining us and stepping away from all of your roles and responsibilities to take some time for yourself, to increase your empathy for other people, and to care for your needs if you are a caregiver. So let's increase that calm right now as we learn about caregiver burnout. What is burnout? It's just that overwhelming feeling of giving a lot of yourself to other people and becoming essentially drained, emotionally drained. The Alzheimer's Association has put out these warning signs. And also the American Medical Association has developed, it's not on this slide, but it's something you can Google, kind of a caregiver self-assessment questionnaire. It's an 18-question assessment, and it has a little resources on the second page, and hopefully that comes up for you on Google. So I think that's helpful to assess. But you can observe, maybe a lack of patience, anger, frustration, anxiety, depression, denial about your loved one's condition. We're dealing with a lot of medical advice, hearing of a terminal illness, hearing about a length of someone's lifespan that can be so overwhelming when we go to these hospital or these medical appointments. Exhaustion, it's definitely hard to sleep if you're trying to do this, what's essentially a 24-hour job. Those of our patients with dementia, Alzheimer's, they aren't sleeping well. Sometimes medical conditions need you to be up throughout the night. So I'm sure you're exhausted. There tends to be a level of self-neglect, and that leads to health problems. Maybe we're not going to our own medical appointments. So just be mindful to stay hydrated and keep taking care of yourself. Again, like I said, it's that lack of patience. It kind of presents itself with some irritability, moodiness, sleeplessness, social withdrawal from friends and activities that you used to enjoy. And that's going to be a little bit of that depression, but also maybe feeling like you're not able to relate to people as your one purpose and focus in life is this individual that you're caring for. And it's hard to step aside and go play and do what we love and connect with our friends that are in a different chapter in their lives. Next slide. So visually, here's a little bit about those common signs. A lot of what we said. Also, our attention span isn't the same. Our ability to focus and maybe remember all of these things is different. We're not our optimal level of attention when our focal point is dosages, medical appointments. It's hard to be present when we are with friends because you are on a different schedule, a different routine. But if there's levels of hopelessness or helplessness, you need to step aside and kind of assess a different way of looking at this, a different approach. Next slide. So caregivers are often so concerned with caring for their relatives and loved ones that their needs, they lose sight of their own well-being. And so that becomes a risk factor. Sometimes we live with the person that we're caring for. There's not even a tendency to be able to step aside and take care of ourselves, everything. And, you're in their space, you have a lack of privacy. There's that social isolation. This is risk factors for burnout. So these are inherent in caregiving, but this leads to a tendency to become burnt out on this job. Financial difficulties, you may have had to step aside or away from your own occupation, and that's going to be challenging. There are some ways to be funded for caregiving. Not everybody is eligible to it. A higher number of hours spent caregiving. If there's not other friends or family that you can delegate these tasks to, like I said before, it's a 24-hour job. Lack of coping skills and difficulty solving problems. There's a lot against you. This is no fault or blame or shame, but it's challenging. And coping skills are hard to come by when you're not taking care of yourself. And lack of choice in being a caregiver. This might have been a huge fork in the road, or you were going one completely different direction. And now all of a sudden you're a nurse, you're a social worker, you're a liaison. That was just completely, maybe you didn't have a choice in that, and that completely changed your life. And there could be some resentment to take a look at. Next slide. Other important facts, things to note, contributing factors are that caregivers are more likely than non-caregivers to describe their health as poor. Chronic stress is a large contributor to our medical issues. I discussed a little bit of self-neglect and maybe not doing your own preventative appointments. And then those basic needs. Are we hydrating? Are we sleeping? Are we stepping outside to take a deep breath in the sunshine? Or are we in this home at all times? Caregivers are 2 to 3 more times more likely than the general public to take prescription medicine for anxiety, insomnia, depression. We're treating these because there's something beyond our control. And so it's hard. There's a lot of worry. Caregivers face that risk of burnout that we're going to talk about today, which is also called compassion fatigue, that selfless giving on. Caregiving itself, and this is given with a little bit of hope and optimism, does not cause all of this illness and these risk factors in and of itself. The unmanaged stress does. So today, hopefully I can provide some stress relief, some optimism, and some coping skills. Stress management is the foundation of care. So we'll get to those tips later. Next slide. A little more education on the causes of caregiver burnout. So let's explore the causes to increase some grace and understanding for those that were around, as well as ourselves, because it is a big job. Conflicting demands as you try to balance the needs of the care recipient, co-workers, employers, family members, and yourself. I also see this in role strain in being that daughter, mother, wife, employee. In addition to when we're in large sibling sets, I've seen that not everybody is on the same page as how that care goes, whether mom should stay at home, go in a facility, end of life planning. There's a lot of choices, a lot of decision making. A lack of control over money and resources, a lack of the skills needed to effectively manage a loved one's care. That's that role strain and that change, that big fork in the road. We have our one occupation that we might have spent decades in, and now all of a sudden, like I said, we're social workers, we're caregivers, we're nurses and CNAs. And in that helping profession, and it might have been a huge change for you. Although you love your person dearly, a great deal, it just makes a lot of changes. A lack of privacy, because caregiving may leave you with little time to be alone. You may have had to move out of your family home and in with mom. And I hear from a lot of people that they don't want their loved one to see them sad. They don't want to cry in front of their loved one. They don't want to convey the seriousness. And so you're stuffing a lot of emotions, and it's really challenging. Another cause of caregiver burnout is role confusion. Difficulty separating your roles as caregiver, as parent, from first a mother, a child, there's that role change. Sibling or spouse of the care recipient, caring for a spouse in a way that you have never had to do yet. Unreasonable demands placed upon a caregiver by other family members or the person being cared for. It can be a thankless job. It can be incredibly challenging. Our loved ones don't always convey the utmost gratitude because they're sick, because they may have that dementia. They may be angry. They may be meaner than you've ever seen them. So be gentle with yourself. This is going to be hard. Unrealistic expectations about the effect caregiving efforts will have on loved ones with progressive diseases such as Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. Our loved ones are changing. They are changing in what they're capable of doing, and that's hard to see. Their mobility is changing. These are our strong parents, and it's hard to watch that. In addition to all of this, as a caregiver, you're also experiencing anticipatory grief. You are already mourning the loss and experiencing grief of losing this individual because they're losing their capabilities. You're losing the mother that you once had, that strong, stoic dad with that incredibly strong work ethic. And so you're already grieving. You're already experiencing losing this individual. And that's emotionally draining. It's really difficult. Next slide. So for those around you, or for you that have a close friend that is a caregiver, and I know we all have the best intentions, but sometimes we can come across as dismissive, maybe oversimplifying what is incredibly complicated. So what's not so helpful for caregivers is making promises you know you do not have the time, ability, or energy to keep. We understand, you have a full-time job, you don't have that fork in your road, you're going your path. And so it's okay to not say, I'm going to make you, meals every week or every day of the week. Just make sure that you can come through. If you say that you're going to be able to give them your undivided attention when you call, try really hard to do that, because they're hypersensitive. They're feeling isolated and lonely, and we don't want to contribute to that. Making comparative and or judgmental comments. It might feel like you're trying to relate. Like, I remember when my husband died, or when I did this for my mom, and that might have some helpful tendencies at times. Sometimes they don't want to compare. They don't want problem solving necessarily. They just want you to listen, maybe validate, maybe keep their story separate from yours at certain times, and just listen to them. They are spending hours and hours keeping all this in their head and just ruminating on this. And sometimes as a good friend, you're just really listening and normalizing this frustration and listening for if they are, losing their patience and feeling incredibly guilty about it. And if we need to step back and reassess, that might be the good friend that reminds them of that. Don't always listen with the intent to solve. I know that sounds incredibly helpful, but again, just listen. Sometimes these problems aren't easily solved. Sometimes they don't want their loved one to be placed, even if you think that that would be easy. Don't feel like you should tell horror stories about what it was like to care for your mom, to care for your husband, what you read on the recent newspaper or local news. they are experiencing the most challenging thing that maybe they've ever experienced, and they know it's hard. They're living with it. Let's see. Don't get angry at these caregivers and your friends for the lack of emotional intelligence that they might possess. Going back to their attention span, to their difficulty being present, this might be the time that you can't really expect them to solve your problems or listen to your difficulties. And I know friendship has that reciprocal nature, but give them some grace that their focus is difficult. It's challenging. That anticipatory grief uh, kind of places a fog on them, and they're just not operating with their optimal levels of attention and focus. And so we don't want to get angry at them for that. And inadvertently validating their guilt. I read that as, just saying it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine, or just being very dismissive of these incredible challenges, because maybe eventually it all will work out. There'll be resilience, but there's going to be incredible difficulties before that. Next slide. Caregiver guilt, that's another thing that caregivers are dealing with. And as a grief support specialist here, I hear a lot of, I wish I could have done differently. Did I do it the right way? Did I do it the way they would have wanted me to do it? Because these are not always conversations that we had before our parents and our loved ones lacked the capability to tell us what they wanted. And so there's always the, should I place them? Should they be at home? What would give them the most dignity? What decisions do I make? Cremation, burial. There just tends to be a lot of guilt. These answers aren't always something we discussed with our loved ones. So caregiver guilt is that feeling of having done wrong or doing it the wrong way. We hear that a lot in making the hospice decision, and it's hard. You don't want to feel like you're giving up, but you want them to not have any pain. You want to fight, but you want them to have their quality of life. And these are incredibly challenging decision-making processes. Guilt grows from anger and frustration from a challenging situation, but also just not knowing and caring so deeply that it feels like you don't have the right answers. But the fact that you're trying so hard, I think that you have their best intention in mind. Focus on the good that you are doing, and just know that they want their loved one to be caring for them with love and respect, and maybe they wouldn't have that anywhere else. But even if placement is the best thing for them, it is the best thing that you're doing with the tools that you have at that time. You're providing them with dignity because you care and you see them as a person and you value their existence. And I could just go on and on about how well you're doing as a caregiver, even if it doesn't feel like it. So ways to cope. Next slide. Let's talk about what we can do, because this is a whole bunch of difficult things. And I want you to walk away thinking that there might be a way to navigate both worlds. Give yourself a break as caregivers. Ask a friend or relative. A lot of people get that sentiment, and when people call or when they drop by, let me know if you need anything. Let them know if you need anything. Let them know if you need a meal, their undivided attention. Feel free to delegate. If at any time ever, this would be the time. Some people are just waiting for you to give them that permission to invade your space or to drop in. Everybody handles things differently, and so you need to teach people how to treat you. Since we all process things differently, not everybody wants people in their space. People don't always want meals. And so that makes a lot of people stand back because they don't know what you need. Ask a friend or relative to fill in for you for a few hours so you can get away, take a walk, watch a movie. The key to this is to do it without guilt. Don't feel bad, to give yourself a rest, because you will have more patience. You will have an abundance of self-care within you to pour from that cup, to be more giving. But you have to be a little selfish at times to nurture yourself and have that to give. Go out to dinner with your spouse, with a friend. There's a couple resources you can Google if you want to take a picture. Locally, we have the Family Caregiver Support Program that offers a little bit of respite. You can contact the Area Agency on Aging to look at eligibility. But there are some facilities that you can look into dropping in for a respite. So do a little research on that. Step away if you need to. I know if your family member is in our community hospice, we have the Alexander Cohen Hospice House for that purpose of giving families a break. We recognize the difficult job that caregivers have, and so we have that facility for you. Simplify your communication. Keep it clear what you need, what you don't need. Keep extended family members close. Try to get a phone tree going. See who's going to just be the communicator. Maybe there's just a chatty one in the group that wants to be involved. That's what that person does. They're the phone tree. You can report to one person and it lets everybody know how your loved one is doing. And then there's the family member that's good at cooking. That's their role. So delegate, talk, request the things that you need. But you don't want to be on the phone too much. We know you have an important job to do. And here's a couple possibly apps or websites that you might want to look into. I haven't heard of them, but it sounds like it might be helpful to let people know how your family member is doing. Yeah, whether it's a massage or a milkshake, again, I say the key is to do it guilt-free and to do it. Next slide, we have a couple more suggestions. Tap into online resources. So this is on a broader scale. We have, it looks like the Elder Care Locator. If you don't have social workers in your life and agencies that you're talking to, here's some ways to look at facilities placement options. And there's support through Alzheimer's Association, AARP, Family Caregiver Alliance's Family Care Navigator. There's a couple different agencies. Our local agency that looks like they can be helpful is the Area Agency on Aging here for Stanislaus County. And if you are working with hospice, we can be very helpful with availability of beds if placement is the best option for your family. Join a support group. I know there's Parkinson's, there's Alzheimer's. Here's some AARP, looks like they have a list. In my final slides, I have some resources to discuss. Friends Are Good Medicine, and that is a lot of support groups in our area. Some of them are based on diagnosis and they're offered through medical groups and our hospitals. So you can get a lot of education to keep feeling like you're in control, you're knowledgeable, you have the data that you need to make the decisions that you need to make. Next slide. More in the same vein of self-care. Nurture those positive relationships, those friends that do call. I know sometimes we don't want to feel like a burden. We don't want to feel like a downer, but they're reaching out for a reason. I think they can handle it. I think that's what they're conveying when they call. Keep your funny friends nearby. They may not be good listeners, but everybody has their role. Watch a comedy when you can, but nurture those positive relationships and accept help if offered. Whether they're going to stop by and drop something off and leave, just don't feel bad in accepting those. Take the time just to lessen your isolation, to talk to family members, to friends, to reach out, get grief support, get anticipatory grief support if you need it. Go to those support groups. Look at your challenges. Think about if you're self-medicating. Do you need a quick AA group on your day off? Think about all of your needs and their needs as well. Take care of your own health. Do those preventative appointments. You can't give what you don't have. We want you to be strong and capable and healthy. Stay hydrated, eat healthy foods as much as you can. I know sleeping is challenging. Do what you can. If you're able to get some night care, there are caregiving agencies. It is something that you pay for. So see if you can get a pool going, because you need some help for all of those people that are offering. Get just at least a shift or two covered. And let your physician know that you're a caregiver, and so they know that you are dealing with chronic stress. You're giving a lot of yourself, and they can keep that in mind as they evaluate you. There's a lot of meditation apps that suggest some daily relaxation and meditation. That can be 10 mindful minutes. So do that for you, maybe quick morning session, quick evening session. In addition, I wanted to add that locally we have Healthy Aging Association, closely related to our area aging association, and they do Zoom classes. So as we talk about physical exercise and what's healthy for you, you can do a little physical strength training via Zoom at your home with your loved one nearby. Strength training. I know at one point they were doing chair Tai Chi. Check back in to see when they're bringing that back. All right, next slide. Again, we're talking about caregiver guilt, and we need to discuss releasing that guilt. Like I said, guilt-free. Know that you are doing the best you can with what you are giving, which is an exhausting job that is ideally made for a team of people. Physician, a nurse, social worker, CNAs, health aides, house cleaners. You're doing a lot. Recognize your limitations. Learn to set boundaries, what you need to say no to. Prioritize your task, prioritize your needs. Feel free to do your exercise class and come back replenished. Ask for help when needed. Maintain your social contacts. Communicate your needs. When you're burnt out, when you see this in yourself, talk to people. We have something called FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act. It's recognized in different states, in different ways, and different employers, but essentially it's an act to protect your job. Sometimes it comes with funding, but sometimes it just puts your job on hold so you can return to it later. Research that, see if it meets your needs or a sibling's need, or a family member that says, I can't leave my job. Research that. See if that's something that can relieve that individual for 6 weeks or supplement your income. And professional help if feelings become overwhelming. If any of what I'm saying, it sounds familiar, you've reached your wit's end, it's time to get some help. Okay, next slide. If you are experiencing caregiver burnout, like I said, reach out, look at a support group, look at talking to a therapist. Some of us are still doing it by phone, and a couple sessions might be helpful to you. Consult a physician and keep managing your stress with these tools that we're providing. Next slide. And if you're a friend of a caregiver, if you know of a caregiver, if it's a neighbor that you just kind of wave to, just be mindful of what I've said and how difficult their job is and how they might be embarrassed to ask for help. Take an action that reduces caregiver emotional labor. Offer to pick up prescriptions. That's a big job. I know a lot of things are delivered, but sometimes if it's a quick pivot to a new pharmacy, or if they just entered hospice and there hasn't been time to change that to mail order, again, offer to pick up prescriptions. I know Area Agency on Aging offers senior meals, a distribution. I think at this time it's a pickup. But you can delegate a friend, a family member, a neighbor to go pick those up. If you have a bedbound person that you're caring for, that's some meals that are free, and you can stay home and that friend, or you can offer, as a friend of a caregiver, you can offer to go pick that up, see if they know about the service, set that up, indicate that you would be picking that up, and that might be something that you can do. If you love to bake and create some great meals, we have this drop and dip. Thank you, Ty, where you just go, don't expect much, drop that food off, give a nice hello, but don't make them feel like they need to keep the house up to entertain a guest. Try not to force them into decision making for simple things. If they say, I'm not sure, and they seem wishy-washy, maybe just do it instead of asking for help. How much emotional energy do you have? Can you listen to them with that undivided attention? Do something that matches it. Is trying something better than doing nothing? Reassess what you have available and what you're able to give. Next slide. Also, as a friend of caregiver, a little more suggestions. You cannot fix the problem, but try not to add to it. Just be gentle in your statements. This is life or death for them. They are going to have times of feeling guilt and inadequacy. Give yourself and them grace. Offer the gift of your time. Give space when they tell you. Don't exclude them, even an offer that you know they might decline. They want to know that their friends are there and waiting for them when they maybe complete this incredible job that they're doing. Offer to take them out. Remember to follow through. Be good on your word, and prepare yourself that they might say no. Encourage them to use all resources that are available to them. Maybe just print it out, set it aside. There's a lot of stuff online, and take care of yourself too. Be a good friend. Next slide. Couple more things about self-care, but it really is just a review. Caregivers, reach out, talk to your primary care, talk to your clergy, your pastor, your chaplain, grief counseling. If you need to check in with your psychiatrist, it takes a lot to do what you're doing. It's hard to be a superhero, and so you need your own team of people as well. Develop those healthy habits, and just know that you can do this if you do a lot of self-care in the background. Next slide. Strategies for self-care. I wanted to I want to tap into that support group, your support system, everything that we've talked about, 5 minutes of relaxation, a little bit of meditation, do some Zoom chats with friends, do the Zoom exercise, but still be able to have your loved one within eyesight. Stay connected. I don't want you to feel isolated out there. Next slide. Another way to feel connected, if your loved one is still verbal and maybe just bedbound, ask them to do an oral history. Talk to them about their life. And I know not everybody is able to do that, but do a life review. Talk about what it was like, historical, monumental events that they were a part of, things that that are repeating right now, what they learned from it. Just value their existence and their history in your family tree. Create a playlist for them, stuff from the 50s, whatever they value, instrumental music. Make sure that that home is a refuge for them. Family meals, if that's possible, just stay connected with your loved one, with the surrounding support system. Just stay connected. That's very important. Next slide. So here's a huge list of resources. Hopefully it's big enough you can take a picture and see it. I just wanted to let you know that we are rich with help out there. The phone number for the Family Caregiver Support Program, again, that is respite for Medicare recipients. Then there's in-home support services for our Medi-Cal recipients, ways for caregivers to get paid. For our veterans, we have the Veterans Administration. That's in the same building as the 3500 Coffee Road, a lot of our senior services. You can ask about aid and attendance, see if that's something that you're eligible to if your loved one was a veteran. And that might also provide some funding as you do your caregiver role. Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, a lot of restrictions, a lot of eligibility things, but look at EDD and see if that's something that can benefit you. The Move Bridges program, again, Area Agency on Aging is where they're housed. That is a benefit to see if you can be paid some mileage as you take this loved one to all of their medical appointments. And so they might pay you some mileage to do this job. HICAP, that is an acronym about health insurance. They are our Medicare liaisons. Another hat that you have to wear is a social worker. So it's dealing with Medicare Part A, B, D, enrollment. Am I doing the right forms? So that's going to be your Medicare friends right there. Healthy Aging Association, that's going to be a lot of the exercise, staying healthy, taking care of yourself, and then a lot of websites. Stanislaus Connections, they offer a newsletter. Friends Are Good Medicine, all three of those are going to be support groups. So research that. I know I went over my time. Does anybody have any questions? These are my references of where I got my information.
Thank you, Erica, for all of that wonderful information. Let's see here. We're going to go to the chat box here. It says every one of these slides could be a presentation in itself. Thank you so much for this overview. Excellent, extremely helpful information. And then another comment just said, thank you. This was so excellent. So much great information. And you always do a really great job bringing it back to our local resources, which is really important because you are right. We are rich with a lot of resources in our community. So Erica, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us. I would like to invite all of you to attend our next presentation, which will be on October the 27th, same time, 12 o'clock, right here, the same link to join. And that presentation is on slips, trips, and fall prevention, which is also so very important, especially as we're getting ready to start that hopefully rainy season this year. But anyways, with that, if there are no additional comments, which I don't see any, we'll go ahead and end our session. Erica, do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
Another plug that I was just reminded of, and maybe it's going to be discussed in the next training, but for those of you caring for your loved one at home, there is a program called Dignity at Home, same agency that for all of our senior services, and they might be able to do home modifications like grab bars and just ramps. And so call Area Agency on Aging and see if that's something that you qualify for.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's an awesome tip. I know that personally, we've had to do that with some families. So safety first, right?
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and end. Again, we hope to see you next month, October the 27th. Everyone stay well. If you need something, please feel free to reach out to us. Our number is 209-578-6300. You can also visit our website at hospiceheart.org. And this information, again, will be on our Community Hospice YouTube channel for you to share or view for yourself again. With that, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.